What's up, Nerdyverse? I'm Daddy Louie, and in this video, we are taking a look at a game called Token Terror's Battlegrounds. So stick around. Before we get started, if you are new to our channel and you want to see more content like this, start now by hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. Token Terror's Battlegrounds is the first game from this new company, and it is actually coming to Kickstarter in just a couple of days. When you're watching this video, it'll be like 2 or 3 days before this game launches on Kickstarter. And while there is not only just a game, also the tokens or the miniatures that they've created for the game are meant to be doubled as not just pieces for this game, but you can also use them in role-playing game campaigns. You can use them as tokens for games like Magic the Gathering and things like that. Because of their size and their shape, they're meant to be thrown in a dice bag with all of your other counters and dice and things like that for easy transport. That's kind of one of the selling points that the developers are going for here with the game. Also, there's a very rich history and lore that they've created for it. There's comic books coming, all kinds of really, really neat things that will be on the horizon for Token Terrors and the future of that franchise. The box itself is quite small. It's only a 5x5x3 box, and everything fits very nicely inside. It's jam-packed with goodies. But is the game good? Well, if you'll join me on the table, we'll check it out. All right, so like I already mentioned, the box itself is not very big. It's only 5x5x3. Lots of really great art on the front. I really like this box a lot. Some information on the back. And you get all of these goodies on the inside. So the core game comes with 6 factions. And they have planned a flash gift if the game funds in the first 48 hours. They are also going to include a 7th faction, the Swamplings, free for everybody who gets the game. And I have no doubt that this game will get there. It's very, very, spoiler alert, it's very good. So I have to warn you that this is a prototype. Everything you see here is pretty much what you're going to get in the game, except for these tokens or these miniatures. They're heavily played, and they are resin. Some of them are resin. I think most of them are resin, but they could also be 3D printed as well. Nope, it looks like they're all resin. So they're banged up a little bit. Once they, are made in production, you won't have that issue. But they're very nice. They're very detailed. I'm sure they're going to look great painted up. I actually wish I had a set that I could paint right now, but I'll have to wait until the campaign like everybody else. And you get 6 of these miniatures per faction, basically. And in the campaign and in the future, they're going to sell these separately. So if you want, 30 of the little goblins because you have a goblin deck that needs 30 goblin tokens, you can just order, 30 of these little tokens for that. But for the game, you just need 6 for each faction, and then army building is unique and stuff too. We'll get into that in a second. You also have your rule book, small, light. Once I read it, I didn't need to read it again. The board, check this out. This is how big the board is. How cool is that? You know me, I like a lot of game in small packages. And this game definitely delivers that. So you have some really cool art here. None of that really matters as far as gameplay is concerned, but it does add a nice little element when looking at it on the table. They are also toying with the idea of making these double-sided and having different themes on each side. So I definitely hope they go through with that. Then you have your faction cards. These have a couple of different pieces of information. So up here is where you keep your reserves. The pieces that aren't deployed right away will sit up here in the reserve section. Then you have some information underneath here. You've got the name of the faction. This is the zombie faction, so it says zombie here. And melee, this is the attacking type. Basically, the zombies are melee. There's two types, melee and ranged. And then you have their talents. Each faction has two talents that can be called upon on your turn. We'll go over that a little more later. On the back, it's just some art, which is really fun. The name of the faction again, the type, and then there's some keywords that they're going to be able to use later on when developing this game further. Typical is a rarity type, and it talks about the threat value and the size of the tokens. They do have future plans for adding bigger miniatures that take up more space, but you can have less of them in your army, so instead of being typical, it would be something else. And then undying, that's another keyword, again, that they can use later on, as they develop the game more. So I really appreciate that they're already thinking, well into the future. And then finally we have, I shouldn't say finally, there's a couple more things. We have some dice. These dice here are your surge dice. They show how many surge points you have. Surge points can be used on your turn to basically push your models to do more than what they're normally capable of. This side here, the X and the 1, just shows when you have none, you flip it like this. When you have 1, you flip it that way. And other than that, it's just a regular D6. And then another D6 that you use for various things throughout the game. We also have a couple of quick reference guides. These are nice and appreciated. And then we have our graveyard bags. Each player, that's a 2-player game, each player gets a graveyard bag, has some really cool art on it. And they use this to put their dead miniatures in, and you also use it at the beginning of the game to determine which of your characters or which of your models, tokens, miniatures, whatever you want to call them, start in play and which ones start in reserve. And we'll go over that now. I'm going to set up for a quick game, and I'll show you how it plays. Real quick before we get into the game, I just want to talk to you about how army composition works. So you would have a roll-off to determine first player, and first player gets their choice of one of the 6 starting factions, or one of the 7 if you have the 7, but however you want to play it. And you draft like that. I would choose one faction, you would choose another, and we go back and forth. When you are creating your army, you can never have more than 6 of one faction. So you're always going to have to take at least 2 factions. But you can take 3 factions. And how you do the split is up to you. You could do, if you have 2 factions, you could do 5 and 5. You could do 6 and 4. You can just never, you can never do like 7 and 3, for example. You could do 6, 3, and 1 if you wanted to do, if you wanted to do 3 factions. It's up to you how you want to do that. However, the more that you have of one particular faction, the stronger that faction is. We'll kind of talk about that in a minute. So you just want to keep that in mind, that when you start taking more than 2 factions, you start kind of spreading yourself thin as far as the strength and power of your army goes. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so once you have drafted your armies, both players will take all of their models. They'll have 10 models each. I've just chosen to do 5 and 5 on each side. And they will put them into their graveyard bag. And then they're going to shake out 5 models. And the 5 models that they shake out become their starting armies. So I've just, for gameplay purposes, decided to have it like this, where both players drew 3 of their melee and 2 of their ranged characters. And then your other 5 models go into their reserves. And you'll pull your cards out and set them to the side. Each player also starts with 1 surge point, which again we'll talk about in a minute. But having the numbers facing up, facing in this game is very important. So ready or fresh or, basically everything is orientated towards the direction that you're facing. So assuming that this player here is facing this way and this player here is facing this way, you can see, these ones being at the top facing away represents that each player has one surge. Now, when they spend that surge, they would just take the die and flip it around with the X facing forward. That shows that they have spent their one surge. But they could save it and, go up to as many as 6. You never have more than 6 surge points saved. Okay, so now that we have done our setup, whoever was the second player, so whoever didn't get to choose first in the draft, they are the player that is going to go first. And on your turn, you have 5 things basically that you do in a very specific order. So the first thing that you do is refresh. Refresh basically means to take any resting model that you have or readied model that you have and refresh them. So a resting model is a model who is facing towards you, so away from the opponent. And a readied model is a model that is facing to the right. And that basically means that they've done something in a previous turn, whether it be, they're just relaxing to try and save surge points, or if they're recovering, or if they have a status that you need to know about. You don't have to refresh to the fresh condition. You can keep characters, in the position that they're in if you want to. You do not have to refresh. Once you have chosen what you are going to refresh, if anything, then you activate. And when you activate, you select a model that is fresh. So it has to be a model that is facing towards your opponent in that direction. And I'm saying that direction as if we're this player here. And you have to give that character that token 3 commands. No more, no less. If you want to spend more commands, that's where the surge points come into play. And there's different commands that you can give, and we'll go over those in a second. Once you have activated and completed your 3 commands, and after you have spent any surge points that you would like to spend, then you have the choice of resting. So if, for example, we did some stuff here with this goblin, maybe we moved him, maybe we spent four commands, right? So we spent 1 command to move, another command to move, another command to move, and then our surge point to attack, this guy is basically spent. He can't do anything else. So we can rest him, and to rest him, he would turn and face this way. And for doing that, I would earn a surge point. So there are benefits to resting, clearly. I can gain surge points by doing that. However, I'm vulnerable to ranged attacks when I am resting. When you are facing away, you cannot evade ranged attacks. You just have to take the damage, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the 5th thing that you do is reinforce. So if you have fewer than 4 tokens on the battlefield, you take one of the tokens from your reserves and you place them onto any unoccupied space on the board that you want. And you basically keep doing this until you have no more tokens, and whoever loses all their tokens first is the loser, and the other player is the winner. So let's talk about the commands and how battling and all that good stuff. Okay, so there are 4 main commands that you can give to a token. The first command that you can give them is to move. When you move, you cannot move diagonally. It must be in a cross pattern. So you can move up, down, left, or right, but never diagonal. And each command only allows you to move 1 space. Now there is a special, it's not a command, but there is another way of earning surge points other than resting, and that is to dash. That means that you're moving your token 3 consecutive spaces, and the only stipulation is they have to be unique spaces, so you can't go like 1, 2, 3 like that. So if I were to go 1, 2, 3, that would be a dash, and I would earn a surge point for doing that. So the next command that you can give to your tokens is the enrage command. That basically allows you to increase your character's threat. Threat is both health and damage in a sense. I'll explain threat a little bit more. But you can only enrage once per turn, and when you do it, you turn your character sideways to let everyone know that that character is enraged. And like I said, it basically gives you an extra threat. Characters that are enraged can still move, and they can still battle, but you can only enrage once per turn, whereas you can move multiple times per turn, and you can battle multiple times per turn. Enrage is only once per turn. Another thing that you can do with commands is use your token talents. So each faction has 2 specific token talents that are for that faction. That's what kind of gives each faction flavor. Example, we'll look at, let's see, who should we look at? We'll look at the Wyverns. So the Wyverns, they have a token talent called Take Flight. It allows them to move exactly 3 spaces. So this is kind of like a really explosive movement, and characters cannot move through enemy tokens, but they can move through friendly tokens. They just can't end in the same space that a friendly token is in. So, for example, this Wyvern here, he could take flight. That could be command 1, and he could go 1, 2, 3, and he is now ready for action. And you can only do token talents once per turn. You can use each of them once per turn, but you can only use the same one once. So he could then rush, which is the next time the Wyvern battles this turn, it has range 3. So now that basically allows him to 1, 2, 3 hit this guy in the front there. So that could be a turn, right? So let's say I want to activate this guy. Command 1 is to take flight. He's going to go 1, 2, 3. Command 2 is going to be to rush. It gives him range 3 on his battle. And then my third command is going to be to battle this this token right here, which won't make sense because I'm only at a threat 1 right now, and he is at a threat 3. So even if the attack were to go through, it would only deal 1 point of damage, which is, again, something that we will talk about once we get into battle, which we will do now. So battle is the 4th and final thing that you can do as far as commands go. All tokens can battle, and there are 4 different types of battles that take place in the game. So 2 of them are melee and 2 of them are ranged. So a melee attack, a normal melee attack, is 1 command point, or one of your commands, and it just does threat versus threat. So all models start at threat 1, and then they gain threat by either enraging or by being in adjacent squares to friendly models, so of the same faction. So this middle goblin right here, he is currently at a threat 3. So he starts with 1, and then he gets 1 for this guy and 1 for that guy. If this model was here, he would only be a threat 2, because he is not adjacent. Adjacent is only in that plus sign formation. So in the case here, like I was talking about a minute ago, if this Wyvern was to attack this goblin, he is only at a threat 1, whereas this goblin is at a threat 3. So even if the damage did go through, that damage wouldn't go through. I mean, it wouldn't kill the token. So, like I said, threat is health and threat is damage. So, when you are battling, you are doing damage equal to your threat, and your health is equal to your threat as well. So, you need to be matching or greater in your threat versus your opponent's threat in order for damage to go through. Ranged attacks can be evaded. As long as it's not a sure shot, which we will, sure shots can be evaded as well, but in a normal attack like this goblin would have the opportunity to evade because he is fresh facing forward. He gets to roll a d6, and on a 4+, which he didn't get, he would evade the attack. But in this case, he didn't evade the attack, so he would take that one threat of damage, of course, keeping him alive. And at the end of the round, damage resets. So if you don't kill him this round, basically nothing happens. And that's where you might want to spend surge points to try and take a token out. So melee is adjacent to adjacent for 1 command point. And melee attacks are not evadable. So you cannot evade a melee attack. For 2 attacks, or for 2 commands, you can attack diagonally, in which case, same rules apply. It just allows you, again, to attack in a way that you normally wouldn't be able to. But again, it's going to cost you two of your commands in order to do that. When battling, you will always take return damage with a few exceptions. So with melee here, this melee attacker can attack this melee attacker, and they would both deal damage to each other. So in this case, this one-on-one, 1 threat versus 1 threat, they're both going to kill each other. They're going to knock each other out. If this guy tried to move in to attack this goblin, it would be 1 threat versus 2. The 1 threat would deal a damage. However, the 2 threat would kill this guy. This goblin would be okay. The only time that you don't take return damage is in the event of that 2 command. It's called a blind strike or a blind side, and there is no return damage. So not only do you get to attack diagonally, but you're also not going to take any damage in return. Same thing with ranged. With ranged, you have to be in range, right? So if a ranged attacks a ranged, then you would both deal damage against each other. However, if a ranged deals damage to a melee character, the melee isn't going to return any damage because he's obviously too far away. So the 4th and final type of attack is a sure shot. So you have a regular melee, right, face to face. You have the blind side, which is the diagonal. You have a normal ranged attack, which is 2 spaces, 1, 2. And then you have a sure shot, which is also 1, 2. However, instead of needing a 4-up on an evade, the defender needs a 6 in order to get the evade. And if they don't evade, they take the damage as normal. So each type, melee has a 1 command and a 2 command attack, and ranged has a 1 command and a 2 command attack. So I feel like I babbled a little bit, but that's just because I'm excited about the game, and there's a lot of really neat stuff. It's basically like a mini battle chess. Each pawn, each token does have unique abilities. Like the soldiers, for example, they have a march command. So I could give, I'll just kind of walk you through like a little turn here. I'm going to activate my middle soldier here. He's going to use the march command, which is to move up to 2 other soldiers, up to 2 spaces each. So something kind of like 1, 2, 1, 2. So he tells them to march forward. He would then maybe he would take a Shoot, maybe he would just take 2 commands this way like that. Yeah. So he'll spend 2 commands to just move forward, and then he'll rest. So he'll turn backwards, which gives me an extra surge point. So now this player over here, he has, let's see, enable another goblin, performs up to 2 commands except for talents. So maybe he tells, he enables this goblin to perform 2 moves. So he'll go 1, 2 over like this. Then he'll spend his second command to move up 1. And then his third command to move over here like that. And then he'll spend his surge to battle this guy here. That was kind of my goal of doing that, was just to show you like how turns alternate, how you take out tokens and things like that. There's a lot of really good things to say about token terrors. There's so many more things on the horizon for the game, and the first Kickstarter hasn't even launched yet. We're just a couple of days away. I really like the little models, little tokens. I can't wait to get my hands on some so that I can paint them up and see how those look. I like the fact of the matter that there's already an established lore for the world in which this game lives. Comic book coming, like I said. There is more armies planned, or more factions planned. The addition of some double-sided boards, maybe. There was also talk of like a battle book where you can store your army and stuff to go with you on the go, which is pretty cool. It'll keep all the tokens and the dice and all that stuff really neatly stored in there. So big shout out to the creator of this game, and I think that you have a really good, not just a really good game, because the game is really good. Like, I can't stop playing it. But just the concept overall, the idea that these tokens can be used for lots of other games, and you're marketing it that way. And, like I said, the lore behind it, the comic books coming, the addition of new types of tokens that will change the battlefield up. I like that the game has such a small footprint, and now I'm just rambling about all the things that I like, but you guys get the point. Lots and lots of fun, very easy learning curve, but as you can see, there's a lot of really deep strategy in the game, and I cannot wait to share all of that with you. I will leave links to everything in the description below. Make sure that you check out that Kickstarter, because this one is going to be huge. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps us out a lot. Make sure that you share it with your family, friends, and your nerdy communities. If there are any games you want to see us cover here on the channel, you can let us know down in the comment section below. I do read all of those, and I enjoy interacting with you guys. If there are any videos that you have that you want featured on our page, if you'd like to collaborate with us, you can hit us up on one of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Circle of Nerds. Also, don't forget that we have a podcast that comes out on Tuesdays called The Cosmic Disaster Show. You can find that right here on YouTube or anywhere that you enjoy listening to podcasts. Season 5 is coming out in just a couple of weeks. And for an extra bit of love and affection to us here at the Circle of Nerds, please consider checking us out over on Patreon at patreon.com/Circle of Nerds. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. I will see you in the next video.